I'm Stacy Ellis, 28, and my family has always treated me like a shadow. My brother, the golden child, a successful lawyer, could do no wrong. And me? I poured my heart into holding the family together, sacrificing my own dreams, always trying to make them proud. But for them, it was never enough. They smiled at my brother, patted his back with pride, while I only received cold stares and sharper words. "Why can't you be more like him?" they said, their voices cutting straight through me like blades. I swallowed it all, stayed silent, believing that one day they'd finally see me. Then my brother's wedding drew near. I was handed the responsibility to make everything perfect, running every detail, ensuring nothing went wrong. I thought maybe, just maybe, this time they would notice me. But I was wrong. The night before the big day, we sat around the dinner table. My brother demanded more lavish bands, imported flowers, things I simply could not provide. I said no. And that's when my parents snapped. Their words struck like a blow I never saw coming. "The greatest gift for your brother's wedding is you vanishing from this family forever." The room went silent. My chest tightened, but I didn't beg. I stood, grabbed my keys, and walked out. The door closed behind me like a final full stop. The wedding day came. Everything seemed perfect, until it all collapsed in the blink of an eye. If it were you, would you stay to witness it or walk away forever? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your answer. Years earlier, I was a freelance marketer with big dreams. I just landed a contract with a major supermarket chain, $40,000 to revamp their regional ad campaign. It was my ticket to independence, a chance to build my name in a cutthroat industry. But then, my family's grocery store in Erie, Pennsylvania, hit rock bottom. Bills piled up, suppliers stopped calling, and my parents were drowning in debt. My mom's voice cracked over the phone, begging me to help. My dad, usually stoic, admitted they might lose everything. I couldn't let that happen, so I walked away from the contract. I called the supermarket's rep, canceled the deal, and poured every ounce of my energy into saving our store. I crafted a marketing campaign from scratch, ads on local radio, flyers in every mailbox, even early social media posts on clunky platforms. I negotiated with vendors, charmed customers, and slashed costs. Within months, foot traffic doubled. The store's revenue climbed, and we paid off the worst debts. I worked nights tweaking slogans, designing posters, believing this would finally make them see me. But they didn't. My mom, Joyce Reed, and my dad, Jeffrey Reed, called a family meeting one evening. I expected gratitude, maybe a nod for pulling us through. Instead, they handed the store's reins to my brother, Brent Ellis. "He's a lawyer," my mom said, her eyes glowing with pride. "He's got the head for this." Brent, who hadn't lifted a finger, who spent those months at his law firm, was now in charge. My dad nodded, avoiding my gaze. "It's for the best," he said. I stood there, stunned, my chest tight. Brent smirked, adjusting his tie, already planning changes to my campaign. "You did okay, Stacy," he said, his tone dripping with condescension. Okay. I'd saved their legacy. I'd sacrificed my future. But to them, I was just the backup, the one who filled in gaps. My mom kept praising Brent's vision as if my work was nothing. My dad didn't even look up from his coffee. I wanted to scream, to demand they acknowledge what I'd done, but I didn't. I swallowed the hurt, forced a smile, and kept going. Late nights at the store, I'd reorganize shelves, update ads, anything to stay useful. I told myself they'd notice eventually. If I worked harder, proved myself more, they'd see my worth. Maybe at a family dinner, my mom would finally say, "You saved us." Maybe my dad would clap my shoulder, not Brent's. Nathan Todd saw through it. We'd meet at a diner and he'd shake his head over my stories. "They're blind, Stacy," he said one night, sipping coffee. You're killing yourself for people who don't care." I brushed it off, but his words stuck. I couldn't stop hoping, couldn't quit trying to earn their respect. So I stayed, pouring myself into their world, believing one day they'd value me. The store thrived because of my campaign. Customers filled the aisles, cash registers hummed, and suppliers returned. But every time I walked in, I saw Brent's name on the manager's office door. My parents would call him to discuss strategy while I was left restocking shelves. "Good job," my mom said, distracted, as if I'd mopped a floor, not saved their business. Brent would breeze in, tossing out ideas I'd already implemented, and they'd nod like he'd invented them. I kept waiting for a thank you, a real one. I kept thinking, maybe next time, maybe if I did more, they'd see me as more than the lesser child. So I pushed forward, ignoring the ache in my chest, hoping for the day they'd finally say, I was enough. Months later, I was knee-deep in planning my brother's wedding. Brent was set to marry Lindsay Newman, his fiancée, and my parents handed me the reins to make it happen. They didn't ask if I had the time or money, just expected me to deliver. I'd been freelancing as a marketer, scraping by, but I dipped into my savings. $10,000 to cover deposits for vendors, venue, everything. I wanted it to be perfect, not for Brent, but to prove I could do something they'd value. I spent weeks calling caterers, florists, photographers, locking in every detail. I picked a menu: roast chicken, garlic mashed potatoes, summer salads to fit the budget. I met with vendors in Erie, haggling to keep costs down, double-checking contracts to avoid mistakes. But Brent had other ideas. He didn't just want a wedding, he wanted a spectacle. "Get a string quartet from Pittsburgh," he demanded over breakfast one morning, scrolling through his phone. "And those rare orchids from overseas. Lindsay saw them in a magazine." I explained the budget was tight, that my savings were already stretched thin. He rolled his eyes. "You're always cutting corners, Stacy. Make it happen." My mom, Joyce, chimed in, sipping her coffee. "He's right. This is his day. Don't mess it up." My dad, Jeffrey, just nodded, flipping through his newspaper. Their words stung, but I kept going, thinking maybe a flawless wedding would finally earn their respect. I worked late nights emailing vendors, adjusting plans. I found a local band willing to play for less, booked standard roses instead of imported flowers. Every choice was calculated to balance Brent's demands with reality. But he kept pushing. One afternoon he called, insisting on a celebrity DJ from Cleveland. "It's only a few thousand more," he said, like it was nothing. I reminded him I was funding half the wedding myself. "Figure it out," he snapped, hanging up. Joyce overheard and shook her head. "Why can't you just do what he wants?" she said. Jeffrey glanced up, muttering, "Don't ruin this for him." I felt dismissed, like my efforts were invisible. I'd spent hours coordinating, sacrificing my own projects to make their vision work, yet every step they criticized. At a family lunch, Joyce pointed out a typo in the invitation draft I'd shown her. "Careless," she said, tossing it aside. Brent smirked, adding, "Typical Stacy." I wanted to snap back, to tell them how much I was carrying, but I bit my tongue. I kept tweaking the seating chart, confirming deliveries, hoping they'd see the work behind it. Nathan noticed the toll it was taking. We met at a coffee shop in Erie one evening, and I vented about Brent's endless demands. "He wants a custom ice sculpture now," I said, exhausted. Nathan leaned forward, his voice firm. "Stacy, you're bending over backwards for people who don't appreciate you. Stand up for yourself." I brushed it off, but his words stuck. I couldn't stop hoping, couldn't quit trying to earn their respect. So I stayed, pouring myself into their world, believing one day. I believed my efforts would earn their appreciation. The store flourished because of my marketing campaign. Aisles crowded, registers ringing, suppliers returning. Yet Brent's name adorned the manager's office door. My parents consulted him on strategy while I restocked shelves. "Nice work," Mom said once, distracted, as if I'd swept a floor, not saved their business. Brent would saunter in, pitching ideas I'd already executed, and they'd nod like he'd invented them. I waited for a genuine thank you, hoping more effort would make them see me as more than the lesser child. So I pressed on, ignoring the pain in my heart, longing for the day they'd acknowledge I was enough. Months later, I was deep in planning Brent's wedding to Lindsay Newman. My parents handed me the responsibility without asking if I had time or funds, expecting me to deliver. Freelancing as a marketer, barely scraping by, I dipped into my $10,000 savings for venue and vendor deposits. I wanted perfection, not for Brent, but to prove my worth. I spent weeks coordinating caterers, florists, photographers, securing every detail. Roast chicken, garlic mashed potatoes, summer salads within budget. I met vendors in Erie, negotiating costs, reviewing contracts meticulously. But Brent wanted a spectacle, not a wedding. Over breakfast, scrolling his phone, he demanded, "Get up Pittsburgh string quartet and those rare overseas orchids Lindsay saw in a magazine." I explained the strained budget, my savings nearly gone. He rolled his eyes. "Always skimping, Stacy. Make it happen." Mom, Joyce, sipping coffee, added, "He's right. It's his day. Don't ruin it." Jeffrey nodded, buried in his newspaper. Their words cut, but I pressed on, hoping a perfect wedding would earn their respect. I worked late, emailing vendors, tweaking plans, booking a local band and standard roses to balance Brent's demands with reality. He kept pushing. "A celebrity Cleveland DJ, just a few thousand more," he said. I reminded him I was funding half the wedding. "Figure it out," he snapped, hanging up. Joyce, overhearing, sighed. "Why can't you do what he wants?" Jeffrey muttered, "Don't mess this up for him." I felt invisible, my efforts unseen. At a family lunch, Joyce criticized a typo in my invitation draft. "Careless," she said, discarding it. Brent smirked. Typical Stacy. I wanted to shout, to list my sacrifices, but I stayed silent, refining seating charts, confirming deliveries, hoping they'd notice my work. Nathan saw my strain. Over coffee in Erie, I vented about Brent's ice sculpture demand. "You're killing yourself for people who don't value you," he said firmly. "Stand up for yourself." Stirring my coffee, I replied, "If I pull this off, maybe they'll see me." He shook his head. "They won't. You're worth more than their approval." But I couldn't stop. Ensuring perfect linens, ordering the cake, paying for a backup generator. My savings shrank, but I believed a perfect wedding would make Joyce smile, make Jeffrey say more than, "Don't ruin it." Brent's demands escalated. Caviar appetizers via a luxury caterer. I explained the budget limits. "You're embarrassing me," he snapped. Joyce, overhearing, sighed, "Just do it, Stacy. It's not hard." Jeffrey nodded, eyes on the TV. Their dismissal burned, but I adjusted plans, hoping the wedding would shift their view. The night before, at our Erie family dinner, tension hung heavy. Joyce's roast sat untouched. Brent, scrolling his phone, demanded lobster tails, $500 Napa champagne, and a Pittsburgh photographer who shot the governor's gala. "Fork still," I said. "Brent, I can't. I've paid for everything. Venue, band, flowers. There's no money left." He scoffed. "You're so cheap, Stacy. It's my wedding. Make it happen." Joyce's glass hit the table. "He's right. It's a once-in-a-lifetime day. Why be selfish?" Jeffrey grunted. "Don't ruin your brother's day." Their words stung deeper than expected. I'd given my time, money, energy, yet I was the problem. "I've spent $10,000 of my savings. Lobster and a celebrity photographer aren't possible." Brent smirked to Lindsay. "Told you she'd cut corners." Lindsay avoided my eyes. Joyce snapped. "You've always been like this, Stacy, never stepping up." Jeffrey added, "Brent deserves better than your half effort." "Half effort? I'd worked nights, haggled with vendors, made their dream possible. I've paid for half this wedding, I said, voice rising. I've done everything you asked. Brent sneered. Maybe you shouldn't be involved at all. Joyce leaned in, voice icy. You know what, Stacy? The greatest gift for your brother's wedding is you disappearing from this family forever. Silence fell. Jeffrey stared at his plate, Lindsay shifted, and Brent grinned smugly. My heart raced, their words a slap. I wanted to list every sacrifice, but their faces, Joyce's glare, Jeffrey's indifference, showed it wouldn't matter. They'd chosen Brent again. I stood, chair scraping. Fine, I said, voice firm, if that's what you want. Grabbing my purse, keys jangling, I ignored Joyce's "don't make a scene" and walked out, the door slamming. Erie's cold air hit me, but a fire burned within. I'd given everything, savings, time, hope, and they discarded it. In my car, gripping the wheel, I knew I wouldn't fade quietly. Tomorrow, they'd see what happens when I stopped carrying their burden. The next morning, their words still seared. On my bed, my savings app showed $10,000 tied up in Brent's wedding deposits. After their demand to vanish, I was done being their doormat. I called the caterer. Cancel the order. I'm pulling the deposit. The woman mentioned penalties, but I didn't care. Next, the florist. No roses, no centerpieces, I told the florist. Return my deposit. The band had cashed my check, but I insisted on a chargeback. By noon, I'd reclaimed most of my $10,000, leaving the wedding bare. No flowers, no music, no food. Guilt didn't touch me, resolve did. They wanted me gone. I'd give them a wedding they'd never forget. By afternoon, the venue was chaos. Guests faced empty tables, no band, no bouquets. Lindsay, Brent's fiancée, stood stunned in her gown as relatives murmured in confusion. Brent, face flushed, shouted at staff who had no answers. Joyce's voicemail was shrill. Stacy, what have you done? You've destroyed everything. Jeffrey's was icy. You're a shame to this family. I didn't respond. Their accusations didn't sway me. I'd heard enough. That evening, Brent vented on an eerie online forum, his post seething. My sister sabotaged my wedding, jealous and spiteful, ruining my best day. Comments from neighbors I'd known for years called me selfish, unhinged. Joyce replied, she's always been trouble. Jeffrey stayed silent, but I knew he agreed. Their lies spread, painting me as the villain. In my apartment, reading the posts, my stomach twisted. I wanted to reveal I'd funded half their dream wedding, but why? They'd never admit fault. Instead, I searched for Asheville, North Carolina apartments, recalling its tranquil mountains. Erie held nothing but a family that saw me as expendable. I called a realtor. Something small. I'm starting fresh. Nathan visited that night, face grim. They're trashing you online, he said, showing Brent's post. You okay? I nodded, hands trembling. I'm done with them. He sat quietly as I packed boxes, books, laptop. You're tougher than they realize, he said, leaving. His words anchored me. By midnight, I'd booked a bus to Asheville for next week. Their wedding's collapse was their fault. They'd pushed me too far. Joyce's blaming voicemail, Jeffrey's cold label of disgrace, Brent's venomous lies stung, but I wouldn't fight their story. I'd given my money, effort, hope. They discarded it. Now I chose myself. Weeks later, in my small Erie office, I packed my freelance marketing business's essentials: a desk, computer, client files. I'd built it modestly, enough to survive. A local agency offered $25,000 for my client listing contracts. I signed without hesitation, pen steady. That plus the $10,000 from the wedding was my escape fund. I'd also invested $5,000 in the family store, managing inventory, suppliers, books. Post-betrayal, I withdrew every cent, without warning Joyce or Jeffrey. They'd chosen my absence. Now they'd face the store's cracks I'd long patched. By month end, I was on a bus to Asheville with 2 suitcases, holding clothes, laptop, books. The Blue Ridge Peaks loomed, promising renewal. My downtown 1-bedroom, simple with mountain views, felt right. That first night, eating takeout on the bare floor, I felt lighter than in years. Erie, Joyce, Jeffrey, Brent, their venom was behind me. The family store collapsed soon after. Nathan texted. Suppliers stopped delivering, customers left. Brent fumbled, Joyce failed at logistics, Jeffrey blamed others. Bankruptcy followed, doors locked. "They're falling apart without you," Nathan wrote. I didn't reply. Their failure wasn't my weight. In Asheville, I rebuilt. Freelance marketing gigs for local shops, coffee roasters, boutiques, kept me steady. Wary at first, the city's warmth drew me in. At a downtown bakery, Shirley Bennett, 50s, flour-dusted apron, greeted me with a free scone. "New here?" she asked. I shared I'd moved, skipping the drama. She spoke of starting her bakery post-divorce. "Takes courage to begin again," she said, her kindness grounding me. She invited me to a business meetup, connecting me with shop owners needing marketing. I landed 2 clients that week. Shirley became a constant. Coffee, chats, her presence steadying me. Brent sent one bitter email, accusing me of ruining the family business. "You're selfish," as if I hadn't sustained it. I deleted it. Joyce stayed silent, likely trapped in Brent's orbit. Nathan's words echoed, "You're tougher than they know." He was right. In Asheville, I wasn't Erie's shadow. I was building. Clients, connections, a life mine alone. One evening, Shirley and I sat in her bakery after hours, sipping tea. Cinnamon roll scent lingering. "You seem settled," she said. I nodded, Erie fading from my thoughts. For the first time, I felt unburdened, breathing free of their expectations. Asheville was my fresh start, Shirley my anchor. I wasn't looking back. He'd call every few weeks, his voice warm over the crackling line. "Erie is not the same without you," he said once, then laughed. "But you're killing it out there." He sent photos of his latest woodworking project, small tokens that kept our friendship alive. His encouragement reminded me of the strength I'd forgotten I had. Shirley, the bakery owner, was my anchor in Asheville. Her shop, with its cozy wooden tables and scent of fresh pastries, was where I'd brainstorm ideas or unwind after long days. She'd slip me a free muffin, saying, "Fuel for the grind." Her belief in me, uncomplicated, unwavering, helped me see myself as more than the daughter who'd never been enough. Then came Joyce's letter. It arrived one crisp morning, her handwriting shaky on the envelope. She claimed she'd been diagnosed with a serious illness, begging me to return to Erie to help her and Jeffrey rebuild. The words were heavy with guilt, painting me as the key to their salvation. I read it twice, my stomach tight. Shirley, wiping down her counter, saw my face and asked what was wrong. I handed her the letter. She scanned it, her brow furrowing. "This smells like manipulation," she said, tossing it aside. "People don't change overnight." Her bluntness cut through my doubt. I'd seen Joyce's tactics before, using pity to pull strings. Nathan, when I called him, agreed. "She's trying to drag you back," he said. "Don't fall for it." I didn't. I wrote one reply, short and final. "I wish you well, but I'm not coming back." I mailed it and blocked their numbers. Cutting them off wasn't easy. Part of me still ached for the family I'd wanted them to be. But I knew staying tethered to their chaos would only erode the peace I'd found. Shirley nodded when I told her, eyes proud. "You're choosing you," she said, pouring me coffee. "That's the hardest, bravest thing." Nathan echoed her in his next call, saying, "You're free now. Don't look back." Their support, steady and real, gave me the courage to let go. In Asheville, I was building more than a career. I joined a local hiking group, trekking trails like Black Balsam Knob, where the mountains stretched endless and wild. I started painting again, a hobby I'd abandoned in Erie, filling sketchbooks with watercolor landscapes. My apartment became a home, plants on the windowsill, a rug from a local market, a shelf of books I actually had time to read. I landed a big contract with a regional tourism board, a 6-month campaign that doubled my income. The work was challenging, but every late night spent tweaking slogans felt like proof of my worth. One evening at Shirley's bakery, I sat with her and a few of her regulars, laughing over stories of Asheville's quirky festivals.
A client stopped by, thanking me for a campaign that had boosted his shop's foot traffic. I smiled, feeling a warmth I hadn't known in Erie. The lesson was sinking in. My value wasn't tied to what I did for Joyce, Jeffrey, or Brent. It was in the life I was creating, the clients who trusted me, the friends who lifted me, the quiet moments where I felt whole. Asheville wasn't just a fresh start. It was where I learned to stand tall, not for anyone else, but for myself. This story resonated with you? Share it, comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.